Hello, everyone, and welcome to our last class of the day for DNA Day from Family Search and Roots Tech. Wow, it has been an amazing day full of education, classes, learning. We just heard from one of our longtime Roots Tech speakers, Diane Southard, who's a DNA expert, and now we have such a treat planned for you that I am so excited about. I met DNAngels at Roots Tech this year. My name is Erin Schurtz, and I'm the marketing manager for Roots Tech. And it was my first Roots Tech, and I met them. And I have personal experience with this amazing group of professionals. They were able to help someone very close to me find a biological match and a parent and a family. And they help people, thousands of people. And we are going to learn from them today. We have here the founder and executive director of DNAngels, Laura Olmsted, and her colleagues that she'll introduce as well. And we're going to have 5 of them join us today to tell their story, tell their mission, and help you hear about the magic of the work that they do with DNA. And Laura told me before we started, and I'm just going to pass it along, get your Kleenex ready because there are some amazing stories that you're about to hear. So with no further delay, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. And thank you so much for joining us for DNA Day.
Thank you so much. I remember her story because I helped work on that case, and it almost brings tears to my eyes as well. This is always such an emotional journey. But as she said, I am Laura Olmsted. I am the founder and executive director of DNAngels. And I want to tell you just a little bit about DNAngels. Kelly, can you start the slide for me? Go ahead to the next slide. So DNAngels is a, good God, I can't see that small. We're a nonprofit with a mission of helping people who are searching to identify a biological parent. We were founded back in 2019, and we do not charge to find a biological parent. We are a set of skilled genetic genealogists and search angels, and we strive to, I can't read this. Oh my gosh. We strive to reunite families in a very compassionate and loving way. I don't need to read this to know this. Why do we do this for free? We do this because when I found out my dad wasn't my dad back in 2017, after testing at Ancestry DNA, I couldn't afford to pay genetic genealogists. I was forced to learn if I wanted my answer. And we all strongly feel that a person shouldn't have to be financially privileged in order to know who your biological mom or dad is. This is a basic human right. We don't just help clients that are an NPE, is what we call it, not parent expected. So that's a DNA surprise. If you're looking for a biological parent and you're an adoptee or you're donor conceived, you have the same right that we have to know who your parent is. So we will help them as well. And we do help them, as you'll see. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we started, it was Kelly and myself and another angel from Germany who was an American but stationed in Germany. And then we got a couple more angels, and we started DNAngels. And now you can see we are from coast to coast, border to border, including Canada, Chile, and England. When we first started that first year, we solved 550 cases, which in itself is really outstanding. But the clients never stop. They keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming as more people test. So as of last week, we've solved 4,205 cases. And we do have a volunteer army of volunteers. So right now we have 72 volunteers, and that's made up of different departments like our intake specialists. They're our front door. Those are the team that actually greet you as you come in and need our services. We have research assistants. We have 24 search angels, and we have 8 board members and multiple people that run other departments. One of the fascinating things about us is that once an angel starts your case, we have solved 36% of those cases in the first week, the first day, the first 24 hours. 30% of our clients will go to bed knowing who their mom or dad is. And then within the first week, we have solved another 33%, which gives us a rate of solving 70% of cases within the very first 7 days. Most of the rest, 90%, the 20% within a month. So that gives us 90% within a month. And then the rest kind of straggle along. One of the biggest things that we're proud of is we represent our community. So we don't just solve a case. We need to have a peer-to-peer support group to help you when you make this discovery. So we have a peer-to-peer support group for our donor-conceived individuals and our NPE. We have support group for our adoptees, and we have a support group for the birth family who just experienced finding a new family member. We're not just for them, we're all encompassing. And then what we do uniquely is on Sundays, we actually have a Zoom support group where you can actually meet in person virtually with your peers, other people that are experiencing the same thing. And it's a very safe environment for you to do so. As long as you're our client, you're invited to this Zoom. We don't have outside people because it's not a safe space anymore. So only our clients are invited to that. And then we have wonderful authors that have written books about our industry. And we do recommend NPE, which is a story guide for unexpected DNA discoveries, written by Leanne R. Hay. And then we've got Ancestry Discoveries by Annette Becklin. And we've got Uprooted by Peter Bonney. I always mess up his name, Peter Bonney, who he's an NPE and a donor-conceived individual. But we absolutely recommend all of these books. We will be available after our presentation to take as many questions as you want to ask. But at this time, I want to go ahead and introduce the stars of our show. And that's our genetic genealogist and their clients. So without further ado, welcome Amy Rose Haynes.
Hi, everybody. How is everybody doing today? Hope everyone's doing great. We're so excited to be here. So I'm going to get started really, really quick. Get my slides up real fast. All right. So first, I'm going to talk about Dr. Nicole Price. She is an NPE, and she came to us after having done her DNA test many years and just never looked at her matches, never even thought about it. So once she finally realized that she had that DNA surprise and her dad wasn't her dad, she contacted a DNA support group, a NPE support group, and they told her to come see DNAngels and that we might be able to help. So this is our screening process. Cindy is our intake specialist, and she screened Dr. Price's case to come in, and she told her that this is going to be a very difficult case to solve, but we are willing to give it a try as long as she hangs in there with us. And Dr. Price sat there and said, yep, let's go. We got this. Let's do it. So the first thing that we do when we take a case in is we want to look at those DNA matches and sort them and to see who they have in common on that paternal line, that unknown line. So her first match that she had, her highest match was Kaylin, which was a 450 centimorgan match. We also looked at her matches in common and see what they were. They did not have very many trees. She had 3 really good high matches, but not much in the way of information to go on. But we were able to find a most recent common ancestor when we were able to kind of link these matches together to a family line. We were able to link them to Horace Richardson and to Francis Cross. That was the most recent common ancestor between all of these paternal DNA matches in common. So once we had that information, I pulled the 1930 census. I knew that our client was going to be closely related to Francis and to Horace, and these were the family members that they had. You see Horace at the top highlighted in yellow, his wife in green, and their children underneath Francis. We were able to get some of those DNA matches into that tree, and we had DNA to Willett Richardson and to Nellie Mae Richardson, so that kind of helped us confirm Horace and Francis Cross. Once we got that all in there, we were looking at Kaylin. We were trying to get in contact with her, and we had very little information. We just knew that she had a grandmother named Gloria, and based on the DNA, we knew that Gloria had to be the common ancestor from Kaylin to our client, Dr. Price, and the Richardson family. We were just unable to prove her parents' line, her father's line, but we left John in there as a placeholder, as the ancestor, so I didn't lose her in the tree. But I knew John was either her father or one of his brothers. So we were able to get in contact with Kaylin. She finally answered one of those messages, which is very, very rare. That never happens. We never get any messages back. And I had to go to social media to get her to respond to me. She confirmed that Gloria was her grandmother and said that she had remarried. And when she passed away, Tyson was her surname. So we didn't have a marriage record for her, but we finally have a new name to go off of to kind of find who her dad was. Kaylin said she did not know who any of the family member was past Gloria. She didn't know any of the family history, which is not uncommon. So from that, Dr. Price pulled a death certificate. She found Gloria Tyson, and it listed Isaac Richardson, the brother to John Richardson, as her biological father. So we were able to get this into the tree and get everything all nice and correct to kind of build off of this. We were able to find Gloria in the 1940s census. She is listed with her father, Ike, and her mother, Clara. You see Elsie Richardson, Laura Steen Richardson, which is Gloria, and her brother, James. We were able to pull the 1950s census, which, thank goodness, this is online and searchable now because it is a lifesaver in some of these cases. Here you have much more siblings to Gloria. So we were able to put all of this information in a tree for her and get everything nice and mapped out and pretty. So we knew one of Gloria's brothers was going to be Dr. Price's biological father. We had more digging to do, guys. We are none yet. So to prove my hypothesis, I used a what are the odds tool on DNA Painter. And everything that I put in there, it kind of showed the same thing as my hypothesis. A son of Ike was going to be the biological father. So first up, I gave her all of this information. The first man that I found in the Kansas City area, because this family was from Mississippi. If you kind of see the census records, I was kind of going a little fast. When this family was from Mississippi and our client was born in Kansas City, Missouri. So we needed to get one of those brothers into Kansas City, Missouri. So Elsie was the first person that I could find that was there. And what was funny is she knew this family. She knew them very, very well. So here is the possible birth father, Elsie Richardson. He was a Kansas City barbecue icon, and I mean that in every sense of the word. He was from where Dr. Price was from. She was very familiar with that family, and at that time, he was the only person we could prove there. And this is his picture. How nice is that picture of him? So then once she got up there and we were going through everything, we had discovered that there was another brother in Kansas City. His name is Vernell, but if you look at the census records, there was no Vernell in the census records. There was a Vaughn, and that person, Vaughn, I could not verify at all. There was no public records for him. Had no clue what happened to him, but Vaughn was a nickname. His name was Vernell, and that's why we couldn't find him. So we were able to pull some older contact information for him, but the family at the barbecue shack, they went ahead and said, yes, we know where he's at. He's at an assisted living facility not too far away from us. And so Dr. Price, she jumped in her car, she went over there, and she walked right into the assisted living facility, found his room, and introduced herself. So, possible birth father, Vernell Richardson. We noticed that the name was Vaughn, and he was actually Vernell. We placed him in Kansas City based on public records later on in time. He was in that assisted living facility. So on May 18th, 2022 is when Dr. Price went to that facility with a DNA test in tow, asked him, do you know my mother and do you know who I am? And he admitted, yep, I know your mom. I loved your mom and I know who you are. You're my daughter. He did the DNA test. And 4 short days later, on the 22nd of May, he tested positive as her biological father. And these are some of the pictures that they had taken that day that she met him, when she just like burst into his room and said, hi, I'm Dr. Price. Do you know who I am? So that is that story. And Dr. Price is going to come on and she's going to speak about her case. Hi, Dr. Price. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Doing great. So tell us about the whole story. Tell us how you found out you were an NPE. Give us that lowdown.
Yeah, so I had been in Ancestry.com since 2011 and never looked at the genetic matches, as you said. I was there to just try to figure out which countries in Africa I had shared identity with. I was learning all about art and food and culture. And I'm one of those people who never look at the messages. And so at once my son joined 23andMe a young woman reached out to him and said that she was his cousin. And I was like, I know who all your cousins are. So can you ask her a few more questions? Well, it turns out we were really excited. My brother had a daughter while he was in the army. The problem is when I got ready to add her to my tree, and we're talking last year, it didn't say niece. It said half niece or first cousin. And interestingly enough, now at that time, it was so foreign to me, the idea that my dad was not my dad, that I started with, well, my sister must be my mom. My oldest sister is 14 years my senior. So I called her, and her answer was not what I was expecting. If you call somebody and say, hey, are you my mom? I think I was expecting her to say, what are you talking about? And she said something different than what are you talking about? And so that started my journey, a 4-month journey of trying to find out what was the story, because both of my parents had died. And just for ease of understanding for everybody who's online tonight, I call the man who raised me my dad, and my mom my parents. And then my biological father, I call him my old man. But my dad had died on my 10th birthday. And so I had been without my dad for 35 years. And I was his favorite. To me, I know your parents can't say this, but to me, I was his favorite. So this idea that I was not his biological daughter just did not occur to me. So I call my sister, who's 14 years my senior, and I say, you must be my mom. And she's like, no. And see, that's not the right answer.
Yeah.
That's not the right answer. And I was driving myself. I had so much lack of focus. My hair had started to fall out. And eventually my therapist just said, do you want to find your biological father? And I said, I do. And she said, well, some people don't know who their mother or their father is. And so how about you join the support group? And as you said, I shared my story, and within minutes, people said, you need to send your message to the DNAngels. And I just couldn't be more grateful, because when I walked into his room, for the first time in my life, I was looking at my face, looking back at me. I have all the mannerisms of my mother. I walk like my mother, but I do not believe I look like her. And so this steep forehead with the edges that go back, that's exactly how Vernell's head is. And so my eyes, everything. And so I was looking at him, and it was the strangest experience, but one I'm very grateful for. So I'm so thankful for the work of the DNAngels.
I'm so glad you found us. Working on your case was so much fun because it wasn't easy. It was one of those hard cases. And it was like, we got a little puzzle piece here. Then we were like, oh, yes, here we go. And then we're like, okay, now what? We got another little puzzle piece here. We're like, oh, here we go. We're great. And then you even found that death certificate. I hadn't even found that yet. I was still working on trying to expand the Richardson line and trying to maybe find Gloria that way. And I had found Gloria Estina, but I was like, I don't know if that's right or not. But you found that record. You were part of the search just as much as I was. It wasn't just me by myself. You were boots on the ground helping. So tell everybody what you did when you went to go see Elsie's family.
So I had a bunch of sibling DNA tests in my car. And I had them because when I talked to my sister, I was assuming that, she didn't know. Turns out that she did know, but I thought she didn't. And so I was like, okay, let me buy these sibling DNA tests so we can see whose father's who. Because it wasn't me. I was thinking it's not me.
Yeah.
My brother must have a different dad. It's so ridiculous now to even think about. So I had several DNA kits in my trunk. And I knew that the Barbecue King had a daughter, and he had just died a year before. And so I was going over there to have her take a DNA test, but she was not there.
She was out of the country. I remember.
She was out of the country.
Yep.
And so her husband shared with me that he had a brother that was in a nursing home, but he didn't even know where exactly. And I didn't want to upset her life because her dad had just passed away. So I was a little nervous about doing this test with her or even bringing this up because, what if it wasn't accurate? He did have other brothers.
Yeah.
And my mom was from Mississippi as well, so we didn't know
if she traveled.
Yeah, it could have easily been like on a trip, but I learned that it was because of a series of complicated events that the year before I was born, my parents had broken up for a year, and my mom and Vernell started dating, and she got pregnant with me during that time. But then in 1976, when I was born, she decided to reconnect with my dad, and they all agreed, everyone, that the Prices were going to raise me as their child, niece, granddaughter, all the things.
And they did.
And
they
did.
absolutely did. They loved you like nothing. Nothing happened.
Yeah. So my mom passed away unexpectedly. She was killed by a drunken driver. So I believe that maybe there's no way to know, but I believe that she thought maybe she would have a chance to tell me at some point. Because none of us know when we're going to go, but we certainly don't think that when we leave our homes every day that we're not going to come back. Because I had asked her, I'm so different from my siblings that I would joke all the time and say, oh, I must have a different dad. And I think it'd be helpful because some of the listeners are asking, how can they contact the DNA Angels? So if somebody could put the email address on the screen, that'd be fantastic.
But is working on that now.
Okay, wonderful. I it was one of those things where I was just kidding, but it turned out that absolutely, I do have a different father. And so my son is 5'9" or 5'10", and my old man is 5'10". He boxed a little bit. My son does some MMA stuff. He studied science and math in college, and I thought I was a first-generation college student. I am not. So I have a chemical engineering degree. My son has an international economics degree. So if there were all these little similarities that you think are nurture, that clearly were nature for us. And again, just couldn't be more grateful. And I think I have time to tell the
You still have time. I got one more question for you too. Okay. How did your siblings take the whole information? How did they take you finding out the genetic truth, your genetic truth? How did they take that?
Yeah. So if there was anything I could do differently, I probably would not have told my now half siblings. What I know today is that I was the only one who did not know. My parents knew, my grandparents knew, my people at my church knew, my siblings who were old enough to know all knew. And I was approaching this situation like it was all news to them. And they had lived 45 years with this secret and were intending to die with it. And today, I think I would just let them die with it and just find my truth outside of them. But the beautiful thing about the DNA Angels is that you all allow people to be able to use science to find out who their families are. And I have solved so many family secrets.
You did.
For even my mother and a couple of cousins that never would have happened without this for me. And it happened during the time where I was already working on some empathy work. But one of the most profound things that has happened throughout this entire experience was one day I walk into the facility and he is complaining about the soap. Well, me and my girlfriends, when we go to visit each other's homes, we don't live in the same city, many of us. I provide a rider as if I'm a famous person. And on my rider is a very specific request for soap. And it says Dove soap, the bar, not the liquid kind, and just the original scent. No cucumber melon or unscented or moisturizing beads, like none of that. As like a little subheading. It's got some extra details there. Well, when I asked him what kind of soap would he like, he said, I really want Dove soap and the bar, not the liquid kind. It's the original scent. And there are many things that we don't have in common, but that is a very specific way to talk about, your preference for soap. And I remember just sitting there looking at him. In fact, many times we both just sit there and stare at each other. I am his only child. He does not have any other children. And almost all of his siblings are deceased. And so I am the person who visits him most often. And that's nice to be able to be there for him in that way. The other thing is I don't watch television very much, but when I do, it's binging Law and Order or Criminal Minds. And whenever I go, that's what he's watching. Now he watches a whole lot more TV than me, but most of the time it's Law and Order and Criminal Minds. So again, I just want to express that I don't know if I would have been able. You said the case was hard for you, and we had the wrong names, and he's not listed. When you look for him, you can't find
Nowhere.
you
Nowhere.
can't find him anywhere.
And his name was wrong in the census. It was Vaughn the whole time. We're looking for a Vaughn. I'm like, I can't find a Vaughn nowhere. Like I can't find him. And then in Elsie's obituary, we saw Vernell.
Yes.
And they told you Vernell as well. I was like, light bulb, there we go.
There we go. And then I found out that Vernell worked at the place where my mom worked for a little bit for 40 years. So it's a beautiful relationship. I couldn't be more grateful. I got to tell you, I don't wish this experience on anyone. It is a very identity shifting experience. I spent lots of time sad and angry and hurt and feeling a sense of betrayal. But now on the other side of it, identity matters. And we need to know who we are, even though we get to choose who we love. Our parents are part of us, no matter whether or not we've ever met them. And that's definitely true in my story. So again, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. It was such a joy working with you. And I do appreciate because you were open, you were honest the whole time. You had not very much expectation, but you were excited for the search as well. And you were, how do I put this? You were very strong at getting those news, even though they were shocking news. You were like, okay, this is heartbreaking. This is gut wrenching. This is shocking and life changing. But what's next? That's how your attitude was with this.
Yeah, I was determined, that was for sure. So I saw us as partners in the work, and I watched you all do your science, moving my mom's side of the family over and removing my dad, which was slightly traumatizing. But I understand. I'm a scientist. I understand we had to do that if we were going to try to figure out who my dad was. And, I don't think we said that, but basically within one day, you all knew that my dad was one of 4 people.
One of those brothers. Yep. It was not easy, but it was quick. We were getting one little piece, and then we're like, okay, what's next? And then another little piece, and we're like, what's next? Okay, we're a little bit closer. And that's what it was. It was just little quick baby steps to get to where we were.
Yeah. And I tell you, it's so nice that Caitlin responded, because if she didn't, I don't know that we would have known Gloria Steen was Gloria Tyson. Like I don't know how.
Because we had no record of Tyson. We could not find Tyson anywhere to pull that death certificate to know exactly which one it was.
Yeah. So I think I am at my time. I appreciate you for having me. You all are fantastic.
Thank you, Dr. Price. And I'll talk to you soon.
All righty. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Well, my name is Kelly Grace Hickey, and I'm also a genetic genealogist and an associate director for DNAngels. And I am going to take over and tell you about McKenna's story. So let me go back to our slides. Okay, and all right. So McKenna's case started with an email. On July 10th, 2021, we received an email that says she was born in San Francisco, and her mother had passed away. Or first of all, her mother, who is deceased, was not married to her father. He was never part of her life. She had met him a few times. He was never part of, involved in her life. And when she was 24, she decided to reach out to him, and they did a DNA test, which showed he was not actually her father. She'd also done one other paternity test and one other siblingship test, and they also came back negative. Mom died when she was 25, when McKenna was 25, not able to give her any other names of who could be her father. To complicate things worse, mom was adopted and she didn't know anyone for her biological family. And she was an only child, so I couldn't even test a sibling to see what mom's side was. And she said, I just really would like assistance locating my biological father. So I said, sure, let's take this case. Why not? I'm game for a good challenge. Well, she only had 23andMe, and we prefer to work with Ancestry because Ancestry has a larger database. It has, you don't have to do interviews for every single match. You can look at their trees if they have one. So I said, okay, we'll start with your 23andMe, but I need you to take an Ancestry. So while we were processing that, I said, okay, how do we find your biological father? She says, well, I was born in California. My dad was from California. So anybody in California should be related to my dad's side because my mom was born in Michigan. I was a little skeptical, but she did have 2 top matches in California. Josh, who had 9% DNA share with her, or 482 centimorgans, and William, who was 2.27%, or 169 centimorgans. So we started there. And I built a kind of a hypothetical tree based on what I had. So we had Josh with his unknown parent, and I figured it was probably a grandfather. And then James, his brother, had a son named William, and that McKenna was somewhere over here. All right. And I told her, all right, I need you to upload. So she uploaded to MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, and GEDmatch. And we found Andrew, who was at 12.3%, or 868.5 centimorgans. And his son Ryan was also a match there too. And we found out by talking to Andrew that he was Josh's half uncle. And then he told me his name was also incorrect. He was an NPE too, but he had found out who his father was. So by July 18th, just 8 short days later, we had reached out to Andrew and his sister Emmy. And he said that his mother's name was Brown. He told us the fact that he was an NPE. He didn't recognize McKenna's last name, but he was willing to help. So Andrew and Emmy told us in an email that they suspected that McKenna was their half-brother Tony's child. I was looking at their Uncle Robert, but I was willing to look and see what they said. So they said, you know, does your dad's name Tony? And that he had lived in San Francisco in 1983 to 87. Then he told us about the family dysfunction. So I let it be known that McKenna's mom worked as a bartender in a bar across from a police station. Tony was California Highway Patrol. Tony also passed away in 2016 from cancer, but he did have a son named Matthew. So at this point, we sent a picture of McKenna's mom, Deborah, to Andrew, and Andrew shared it with Tony's old roommate. And he said, yeah, that's Deborah. She used to date Tony. So the plot thickened. They also confided in us that Tony was also an NPE, but Emmy had a possible name for his dad. She actually had it on a piece of paper in grandma's handwriting. So then she got her ancestry test back. Well, here's Deborah, first of all. She's a very lovely lady. And this is baby McKenna. And for comparison, here's baby Tony. Isn't that amazing? And then here's the adult Tony, kind of a handsome guy there. So she and Matt agreed to do a lab test for siblingship, and it was supposed to take 48 hours. It was the longest 5 days of my life. I would text her just about every morning and say, do you have the results yet? And finally, one morning, she gave me this, 93.2240%. So we had a half brother. And her tree ended up looking like this. It was actually mom that was the sibling to James, and all 4 of her children had different fathers. So they were all half siblings. So here's some fun facts about this case. Tony was an NPE. So after we found him and proved that he was her father, we then proved his father. Deborah was adopted. So we narrowed her parents down to 2 likely women and 1 man. And McKenna has made contact with them. And we think that Tony's mom is probably an NPE as well. If you remember, Andrew said that she was a Brown. There isn't any Brown DNA in that tree. So that's our fun fact. If you want to know, yes, McKenna and Matt do look alike. So there they are. And I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to bring McKenna on now. and let her talk about her experience. Hi, McKenna.
Hi, I'm supposed to tell you that my brother doesn't love that photo of him,
Okay.
but it's the one that I had and I liked it. So,
Well, considering that you were supposed to be at his house and he was supposed to appear in person as our special guest.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I'll get heck for that later. So yeah, that's our story. I was born in California. My mom is originally from Michigan. We moved back there when I was 6 months old and lived there for the first 8 years of my life. And that whole time I knew that I had a dad that lived out in California, and my mom never spoke poorly of him. She said he knew of me and just chose not to be in our life. 8 years later, we moved back to California. I know he lives there. I ask if I can meet him. She calls him. He comes around. We spend a few weekends together, and then he sort of disappears again. And I asked my mom, where'd he go? And she said, well, he made the choice not to be in our life again. 24 years old, I think I know everything. I get a wild hair and decide to write him a very strongly worded letter, kind of calling him out and saying I deserve an answer for why he's not been around. He tells me he was never sure he was my dad. I write him another strongly worded letter, say, well, you should have done a test or made that happen. And the next response I get is a DNA test in the mail. We do that test. He's not my dad. That's sort of the end of our connection. About 4 years after that, I did the 23andMe test and I actually looked at the results today. And it was 9 years ago today that I got those results back from 23andMe.
Oh, wow.
And had nothing, had nothing but like third and fourth cousins and didn't know didn't know how to figure out where they came from because my mom was adopted. 2 years ago, July of 2021, I get this first cousin match with Josh, and I had also randomly just been spiraling on Instagram as one does and came across someone else that had connected with DNAngels and said, well, if they can figure it out for her, let's see what they can do with my case. And I think it was a Saturday afternoon. I applied, did not expect an immediate answer, got one, connected with Kelly. And I'm like, this is my person. And I also did not follow a script like Dr. Price. I did none of the initial contact. Kelly offered me these resources and I refused. So she was in my messaging she was in my ancestry, my DNA, sending messages to these family members, telling me what they were saying. I'm texting her what to ask next. We get it narrowed down to, we think it's Tony, and my uncle Andy is like, I'll reach out and I'll contact Matt and sort of give him a heads up on what's going on. And I won't give him too many details. Come to find out, it was like a multi-paragraph text message that ended with, and you have a sister. So the next day I get a message from my brother and he introduces himself and invites me into a conversation. We talk for a few hours. He reaches out to some other family friends to sort of share what's going on. They confirm details. So what we've come to the conclusion, where we've landed is Tony probably didn't know I was his daughter. He probably asked my mom about me and trusted her when she said that I wasn't. But they did keep in touch for years. He knew things about my mom's life that I hadn't shared because I didn't know him, but they were aware of each other and kept in touch. When my mom got sick, it was about 3 months after I found out that the person I knew to be my father wasn't my father. And when I shared that with her, she did not have a great reaction. But I think that was coming from a place of fear and embarrassment. But I'm happy. I'm not happy. I'm happy to say, though, that we got to a place where she admitted she forgot and would give me that information if she could. I'm not upset that she didn't know. It was 25 years later. And she was a single parent in the 80s. And I think not having all of the answers to her own questions, she had to pick sort of what story and what narrative would help us as a family unit while she was a single mom to an only child in that time in the world. And maybe she forgot some information on purpose. I don't know, and I don't think it was done maliciously. I wish she knew at the time. I wish I got to share that information with her. But exploring this on my own has given me the space to process it and understand where I fit within this information. My brother's a pretty cool guy. I did give him a couple escape options that where I was sort of releasing him from having to know me. I just really wanted information about these genetics that we shared. And he told me to quit my SHIT and just let him get to know me and be in my life. And since then, we visited a few times. I've gone back out to California. He's come to Pennsylvania. We talk regularly. bounce ideas, give unsolicited advice, even if it's not asked for. And it's been a great journey. I couldn't have figured it out as quickly as I did, or even potentially ever, if it wasn't for Kelly and the movie we're writing about it.
I was going to ask, are we still doing the movie? Because I still want Sandra Bullock to play me. And remember,
Absolutely.
I was wearing sweats the entire time. So
Absolutely.
not only did you get a bunch of cousins, some cool aunts and uncles, but you got something else really kind of neat from Matt. Besides,
I have a niece and a nephew. Yeah, I have a niece and a nephew. They're perfection. I don't care what he says that they do. And they're these two amazing creatures. And DNA relatives have never been super important to me, because all of my family, through my mom's adoption, all of my family is always chosen family. So to have these little tiny humans that I'm related to is a fun new adventure.
So you went from having, one biological relative being mom to a whole huge family. And
yeah,
I don't care what Andrew says, if they're dysfunctional or not. They seem like a great crew. We had a hour-long conversation via chat with Andrew. I still have it on my phone. I've talked to your aunt. I've been calling her Emmy. I know that that's not the name she prefers, but
she goes by Jean. Everyone's been really great. It's been it's been an adventure of figuring information out. Generational trauma is a big deal, and my biological grandmother is still alive, and she did not have an easy life, and her children didn't always have easy lives because of the choices that she had to make. Everyone's been super accepting, super welcoming of me. Andy actually had some health problems recently, and I got an update today that he's on the mend, so that's really exciting. And it's just been fun. It's great to see how willing people are to know you because they see a connection. So that's been really rewarding.
That is so awesome. I'm going to open up the floor to questions now. So if there are any other questions out there for either McKenna or for Dr. Price or for Amy and I or Laura, can we bring everybody back into the room with us? Is that possible? All right. There's Dr. Price. There's Laura. So anybody have any questions for any of these lovely ladies? Did we get everything?
Well, I'm seeing lots of questions over here, and you can go ahead and read them if you want to.
Okay.
Brenda Bull says, do y'all handle unknown paternity cases? Yes, we do. If you're looking for a biological parent, we will help you as long as you have tested at Ancestry. Your biological parent is presumed to have been born in America, and you're over the age of 14. We will help you. As a matter of fact, unknown paternity cases are about 55% of the clients that we help overall. The rest is made up of adoptees and donor-conceived cases.
So somebody asked, what is an NPE? It's a non-parental event is how we refer to it. It started off meaning non-paternity event, but these days with people that could be egg donor conceived, you might not know who your biological mother is. And I believe Laura was actually working on an egg donor case while I was traveling down here to be with Amy. So that is what an NPE is. There's
lots of different discussions about what NPE is. I actually always say it's not parent expected because of that egg donor thing. We don't want to say paternal anymore. It's not
we say
parent expected.
Or parental, yeah.
Or misattributed parentage.
MPE.
MPE.
Yeah. So many different things.
People have asked how they can get in contact with us. Our website is DNAngels. It's DNAngels, but there's only one A. If you want to send us an email, you can send it to info at DNAngels.org. If you're interested in volunteering, you can send it to Amy, and she spells that AIMEE. I think it's on our screen, Amy at DNAangels.org.
Or message me on Facebook. You have my name up there. Just send me a message.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been using her phone to answer all of these. So sometimes it was her, sometimes it was me. If you have, are there any other questions? I see a lot of our clients in the room. I see Sharon and Alice, and there's Leanne. Hi, Leanne.
I was going to say that too. I see so many of our clients here.
Yes.
We have 4,000. Well, we actually have over 5,000 cases. Let's be really clear here. So we have started working on over 5,000 cases. We have a solve rate of about 93% of the cases that come into DNAngels are solved, but we still have that 7% that makes up the difference between that 4,205 cases that we call solved to over 5,000. So those are the long-term cases that need, just that one more match in order to solve. So we do have over 5,000 clients. So I see a lot of our clients on here, but I see so many new faces too.
Yeah, and I wanted to just drop this in there. Katie Smith said, Dr. Price is so bold. Yes, she is.
She is. And honestly, she brings me to tears. It doesn't matter how many times I hear her story. I almost couldn't even keep it together the other night when we all met to kind of talk about our presentation. I was like, where are my Kleenex? I really wanted to ugly cry. It's just amazing to me that of course, her parents knew, but her siblings knew, and the church members knew. Everybody but Nicole knew, but Dr. Price knew. And I just find that incredible.
Amy's going to answer a question. Go ahead.
So, Bonnie, yes, I see that you have it down to 6 brothers. What you're going to need to do is target test their children. A Y-DNA just isn't going to help you with trying to find a birth parent. The reason being is a Y-DNA test, that's looking back thousands, 50,000, 10,000 years back in your line. So you're not going to be able to find something more recent. So MT and Y-DNA is not going to help you find a birth parent. Autosomal DNA test is what you need. And where you have it down to 6 brothers, you need to target test one of their children, either with a half-sibling test, or if the men are still living, try to get one of them to do a test. Or you can also do an ancestry DNA test, a MyHeritage, or a 23andMe test. One of those will help you get your answers. But sorry, the Y does not help in these cases,
unfortunately.
And I want to address a question from Farah Eugene. She says, I want to find more of my family members. How can I do that? Test your DNA. So our mission is to find biological parents. So we don't just take your case to go find extra family members or to tell you, like, how does this DNA match me? We are here to find your biological parents. Now, we do offer a paid services program. That's actually how we fund our angels. All of our volunteers are 100% volunteers. Nobody gets paid here at DNAngels to work on a case. However, it costs us a lot of money to be angels and to pay for all of our subscriptions. So one way that we do that is through our paid services program. So if you have a brick wall case, or you have an unknown grandparent or a great grandparent, or even an unknown third great grandparent, we will work with you on that. And just go to our website, click paid services, and you can see our very affordable pricing for that. So thank you for asking that, Farah.
I'd like to answer this one. Kathy, one of my cousins was able to find her father, and the DNAngels helped them, and her situation was exactly like yours. So I do think that if you're interested, you should reach out. And then Debbie Beck wants to know if I'm in Kansas City. I am. And yes, I love LC barbecue. So let me know if we're going to meet up there sometime.
I have another question from Joan. So you're saying that you had some male cousins that did their DNA, I'm assuming probably their Y DNA is what I'm guessing, and it's not matching up with the ethnicity that you have as your known ancestor. And she also asked what takes precedence, the paper evidence or the scientific side / DNA evidence? Which one takes precedence? So that's a tricky question. It's going to be both in a way, but your DNA does not lie. Like, your DNA doesn't lie. And if it is a Y DNA test, you have to remember that those are your ancient roots, way back in time, way back. And there was a lot of migration. European borders changed a lot. So you may say that you think you are Greek, or you're German, or you're Polish, but you have to remember, even as recent as 100 years ago, those borders were changing. There's a lot of war and conflict. You had a lot of migration, like the Vikings were moving places. You had the English that were all over the place, the Crusaders. There's just a lot of movement going on. So what you may think is your paper trail and your race, it's not the same. It's too fluid. You have to go with that DNA evidence. And there's DNA evidence, you can only go back so far with that. So it's kind of tricky. You can go back as far as DNA is going to take you and then pick up your paper trail from there. It's just whatever you're going to go with. And me, and personally in my tree, I go with what I know I can prove. If I cannot prove this, I'm done. I'm stopped. I'm not looking to go back to Joan of Arc. I don't want to go back that far. So where I know that I can prove, that's where I personally stop.
She didn't have any kids. Joan of Arc.
Well, I'm just saying.
I want to answer Kathy Collins Bland. She said that she had someone contact her and she's got it narrowed down to a couple of men. Can you all help us? Possibly. Go ahead and reach out to us. I think Cindy had put in our screening room link, or contact us at info, and we'll definitely take a look at your case. And then I saw another one. Giselle Fuller is going to pass it along. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Annette.
And hi, Annette. Yeah. What service do we recommend for sibling tests? McKenna, what service did you guys use?
We used LabCorp. They had two options. One was court admissible, could be put into record. One was not, but they had the same process. They had the same information that was tested and collected. It was just how it was transmitted to us afterwards. And, as a team, we decided we didn't need to pursue anything that was court admissible. We just wanted that information. So LabCorp worked for me in the test where I found out this person wasn't my brother. And then it worked well for me to determine that Matt and I were siblings.
Okay, perfect.
Let me take this question from Diane Evans. I just see it popped up. How do you work with states that have closed adoptions? Diane, it doesn't matter anymore. We work with DNA. We don't work with adoption paperwork. We're not looking for a paper trail to your parents. We're simply following the DNA and the common ancestors. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about that. Take a DNA test with Ancestry and reach out to DNAngels. We will have your answer.
Okay. Looks like we're going to be hearing from Anna Embry Hooks, so look for her. Thank you for commenting. I also saw one up here. Have you heard of other volunteer opportunities such as immigrant children or unidentified bodies? We do not work with those at this point in time.
Our mission is to find birth parents. That is what is our core mission. We want to find your biological moms and dads, and that's what we try to focus our time and efforts onto.
I can tell you that about 85% of the volunteers at DNAngels have personally experienced a DNA surprise in their immediate family tree, or they are donor conceived, or they are adoptees. That is what makes us so strong as a team. We are not just a random search angel that finds genetic genealogy fascinating. We have some skin in the game. This means something to us.
Mm-hmm. A lot of our volunteers and board members are actually clients of ours, previous clients of ours. And even though you're a client and yourself, you're still part of our family. Like you're always with us forever, even after you've got your answers and everything. And like I said, some of them choose to come and volunteer with us to give back to others as we've helped them. They want to help others too.
Yeah, Laura and I met because we are both NPEs. If we had not met, I don't know. I mean, if we hadn't taken those tests and found out that our fathers weren't our fathers, been placed together, who knows where we would be.
Right.
Let's see. What were the 3 sites you uploaded to? They are MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA or FTDNA, and GEDmatch. So those are 3 free sites. I think Living DNA is another one you can upload to. We haven't used that one a lot, but I'm willing to learn. Unfortunately, your person's in South Africa and Sicily. Yes, unfortunately, at this time, we are only able to find people that were born in the U.S. or have been in the U.S. But we do have other groups we can refer you to in Australia, in England. We have the Canadian Angels. I've seen a couple of them pop up through the chat. So we do have a sister group in Canada. There are groups popping up all over the world. The problem is that not a lot of countries have open access to DNA tests. And in fact, in some countries, you can't even get them.
It's illegal. It's illegal in Germany. You cannot take an at-home DNA test.
And Laura, you mentioned your case that took 3 years to solve. I see Bruce Paul Scott is on. So
are you? I wish I could see your beautiful face, Bruce. Bruce is so special to me. It did take me 3 years to solve his case. He just had matches that were awful. I'm just going to say they were awful. They didn't know their family. They had broken branches. They were not very close to him. And I have to say, and I know he doesn't mind me sharing, but every single generation on both sides of Bruce, I'm sorry, not on his mom's side, every single generation on his grandmother and grandfather for his dad was broken. Their father was not their father. I still can't even tell you who like his great great grandfather is or his great great grandmother. I can only tell you who his immediate family is. But that was a beautiful day when I called Bruce on the phone to literally I want to cry, to tell him that his case was solved and I found his dad.
Daphne Blair asked if DNA can be extracted from a hairbrush or a toothbrush. Could it be uploaded to one of these sites for us to use? And if so, could you suggest a place to have those items tested?
Okay, so Ancestry DNA does not. There is one that will if you send it into them. And I want to say it's MyHeritage or it's FTDNA. I'm pretty sure it might be FTDNA. They will do that. They'll send you a kit. So if somebody has passed away and you wanted to get their DNA and stuff done, I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe that you can call them ahead of time. They'll send you everything that you need to extract that hair from that deceased relative, and then you can send that in for processing. If you want to email me and I will clarify and do a little more research, because it's been, I think, like 8 years since I dealt with all of this, I will do some research and I'll get back to you. So send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat box, okay? So I don't forget. Mm-hmm. That way I know how to contact you.
And then Aaron Elton Shorts has asked, how many do you think we have helped? So we've said this a few times. We have helped currently 4,205 clients. However, I think Cindy updated our numbers because we just reported them today. So I want to say, I don't see it in here. Oh, 4,231 cases
31.
as of today, because we just updated it today. We update it every single week. So thank you for asking that. It's pretty incredible. We are actually astounded by how many cases we have solved. And I have to tell you, honestly, 4 years ago in 2019, when we got started, we were just infants at genetic genealogy. We knew it was something that we had a passion about. We understood it, but we hadn't fine-tuned our processes or our skills. And we have just learned and fine-tuned our skills over the last 4 years. And we have really learned how to expedite a case and get it solved very quickly.
Okay. And thank you, Dan. Yes, it was a rewarding for Laura and for the rest of us, because I think every one of us in the group had touched that case at some point in time. So it is very rewarding when we can find family members for our clients, like Dr. Price, like McKenna. We take it personally when we can't solve a case as easily as we want to, because we want to find those family members for them just as much as they want to, because it's our way of giving back.
And I see Alice Joe Pearson Minor in here. She said, Love you guys so much. You changed my life. Alice, you've had a profound impact on my life as well.
We have Sharon in here, one of my cases, and she's one that's half solved, half on hold, and she's one of our paid services clients. She is a great grandparent search.
Oh, wow.
So we're back in like 1850s, 1880s time frame.
And Lisa D, I saw you on there. Lisa just got confirmation her half sister just tested and came back as a half sister. So we have confirmation of hers. So yeah, that was
good job.
That was exciting. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Can I just share one thing?
And reading. If you guys see a question, just answer it.
Yes, please go ahead, McKenna.
So I wanted to share one thing with everyone that's sort of looking for extended relatives beyond parents and immediate siblings. I've learned so much from this team that once you start understanding and once they start working your case for how to connect you with your parent, you will then be empowered to figure that information out and understand how to put it together to find those, aunts and uncles and cousins. I was able to find and narrow down and confirm who my mom's biological parents were through what Kelly taught me and just paying attention. So this community continues to give back to you. Stay in the support groups. Once you get one connection, explore that information, put that math together, and you can do a lot with the information you learn from these people.
Yoshi, yes, it is normal for a Y-DNA test to come back with multiple surnames. So the Y-DNA test is looking at ancient DNA. It's way back 10, 20, 30, 40,000 years back. So if you think back now, we're dealing with NPE issues with like your generation, our grandparents' generations, even great-grandparents' generations. When you think about that huge time frame, those thousands of years, that gives plenty of time for NPE things to happen. So, or even adoptions, like foundling babies has been a whole issue hundreds of years ago, and they just raised their baby, or something like that happens, or a parent dies and somebody else takes that baby in. So surnames aren't going to always match up. Sometimes they will. And if it does, you're a lucky unicorn. But most of the time it doesn't. I have not found any Y-DNA test with any of my clients that actually helped or fully confirmed. It would confirm like with the super close ones that were within the last like 500 to 1,000 years, it would be similar variations of that surname. The majority of them, they're completely off the wall bonkers.
I see a lot of questions about the British Isles and UK. Please send us an email at info@DNAngels.org, where we have more time to actually get you some links to who our sisters are across the pond to get you some answers. If we can't do it, we will get you a referral if we can. We do know so many search angels out there across the pond and above the border. And we're all happy to help, and most of them also do this at no cost. That's kind of what the industry is, search angels. But we do take donations. Don't forget. More than happy to have you click that donate button. One other point I wanted to make is that we want you to take your power back. You don't know who your birth parent is as an adoptee or a donor conceived person, or after you have that DNA surprise. We don't want you to hide in the corner. We don't want you to get under the covers and never come out. We want you to take your power back and own who you are, because you have every right to know that. There is no shame or humiliation. You didn't create the situation. You just uncovered it.
So, I think we're out of time probably. It looks like we're a little bit
We
over.
probably are. So any further questions, just send us an email.
And thank you everybody for tuning in, and thank you for all the amazing compliments and kudos and love that you've given to all of us and to McKenna and Dr. Price.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.